Hi everybody, and welcome back to the channel. This is a keep cup that I made. I'm pleased that the lid actually fits it. If you have been working with clay before, you would know that clay actually shrinks a lot. The size that it was thrown, the size that it was bisqued, and then after that the size that it was glazed would all shrink gradually. And so I'm pleased that the lid actually does fit and it's watertight. But anyway, today we're not talking about keep cups. Today we're talking about mixing bowls. Now, these are my old mixing bowls, stainless steel, and they've done really well in terms of, the different sizes, and I've used them a lot because if you followed me for a bit in the channel, you would know that I do really like cooking. But with my new pottery obsession, I thought that one of the things that I should make are nesting mixing bowls. Nesting ones that I have handmade myself. Now, let me get the other two that I previously made, not part of the set. These are the other two that I've made earlier before this set. I featured this bowl here in my last video about the things that I've made after 6 months of doing pottery. With this set, I have learned how to measure things, how to throw it through a class, an online class by Sourdough Ceramics. I'll throw the link down below. Now, in that class, it's an online class, and she demonstrates what you need to do. She talks about how you need to measure each ball of clay and how you need to measure the mound that you first make, the size that you pull it up, and then the shape of it all. In this video, I'm not going to talk about how I throw it, but instead I'll link below to her class and you can sign up for yourself and enjoy the presence of Sourdough. She's an amazing ceramicist. One of the reasons why I really wanted to make my bowls is when I'm making sourdough, for example, and I needed to fold the dough. Let me just put it up here. The dough, because it's quite sticky, and when I need to fold it, I lift it up. When it's heavy, the bowl just stays on the kitchen bench. But if I were to use something like this stainless steel bowl, I lift up the dough with two hands, the bowl would lift up with it. And so usually when I was making sourdough, I would just have to hold that down with one hand and then lift it up. And that doesn't really give the best fold, I don't think. That's the main usage for this bowl, is to make sourdough. I don't remember exactly what size I threw this at. I think I have a feeling that it might be 3.5 kg. It was before the days when I was actually quite particular about measuring things. And I just wanted 2 mixing bowls, and I got these 2 mixing bowls. Let me show you the bowls that I made after following Sourdoug's class. So that's number 1, number 2, number 3, and 4, and 5. I probably should have stacked them above the actual glaze that I used, but let's talk about the glaze that I used. For all of these bowls, the inside of it, I poured in Abbott's almond glaze. It's a dipping glaze. I poured it in and swirled it around and poured it out again. On the outside of it, because particularly with this size bowl and this size bowl, it's too big to actually fit into my glaze bucket, I decided that I'd use brushable glazes. So for this one, has flashes of pink on it. This was 3 layers Amical Flux Blossom. The brush that I really like to use for brushing on glaze is this fan brush. Let me measure how wide this is because I find that useful. Okay, so the spread of this fan here from end to end is about 6 centimeters. It's about slightly larger than 2 inches. It's a lot nicer to use to spread the glaze on, and it's more even coverage as well. I did also buy some of these smaller ones, which are about 3.5 centimeters, so maybe about 1.5 inches wide. And these are nicer for when you want to do like extra details on the rim of it, but not quite so if you're going to brush the whole body of the pottery piece. So that was Flux Blossom. You can see that it did flash a bit of pink on the rims of it. Even though it was 3 layers of glaze, I think I could have done a bit better with evening it out. But still, that mottled kind of look is something that I do like to feel and see. Not everything has to be nicely even. So that was Flux Blossom. Now the next one, I'll move this guy this way. This one is also kind of pink, but with this one, I used the Mako Stoneware Rose Quartz. So it's a darker pink compared to this one. However, what I did with this one was after I brushed 3 layers on the outside, I did use my little smaller fan brush and took a bit of the Flux Blossom and just brushed it on the rim. I was kind of imagining that it could kind of like flow down, and it did. If you look at that, it does have some drips there. So that one was Rose Quartz. Now the next size, and I'm gonna move this guy up here. This one I like a lot. When I showed it to my daughter, she said that it looked like the Pacific Ocean, like a beach. And I guess she's right, because if you look at that white bit there on the top and where it meets the green bit here, it does look like it's a view from a golden sand beach with surf, with waves washing across it. So I really like that. And now the way I got that was, it's a Coyote Seafoam satin. So satin means that it's not glossy. I personally prefer glossy glaze, but I really wanted to get a seafoam because I was experimenting with something else, and that was the only seafoam that I found, was a Coyote brand one. Now what I did with this one was 3 layers around. You can see where it is kind of satiny, where it's not glossy. It was purely just the seafoam. So 3 layers there. And then I used my little fan brush to brush Amaco Cirrus Flow on the rims of it. So on the rim here, I just brushed that around, not too thickly, just a bit. And when I put it through the firing glaze, it turned out beautiful. I probably would want to recreate that again on maybe a mug. I do have a couple of mugs that does need glazing. So that was, once again, Coyote Seafoam, 3 layers of that with 1 layer of the Amaco Cirrus Flow, Potter's Choice Flux, just on the rim of it. So that's bowl number 3. Now the next one is this one here. I really love playing with glazes. So with this one here, it's 3 layers of the Cirrus Flow. So that's the one that's kind of like greenish bluish. And on the rim of it, once again, using my little fan brush, I painted on some of this Mako Stoneware Midnight Rain. Midnight Rain is a glaze that I've used quite often. It's the glaze that I used on the outside of this keep cup. So I took my little brush and brushed inside and outside the rim of this bowl. So on the outside, you can see the drips, which I think is just amazing and beautiful. It kind of even has a flash of pink on the bottom of the drips. But on the inside, it also has that little drippy bit, the effect that I really liked, that I first discovered when I was doing this bowl here. So I really like that bowl too. And finally, the smallest bowl of it all is the one that I used. It's exactly like this one, where it's exactly like this one, except this one I fired at the club kiln, and this one I fired in my own kiln. So there are slight differences in terms of the markings. Still, glaze is glaze, and I really love playing with glaze, as I mentioned before. So that one is purely just all of the outside with 3 layers of Midnight Rain. Now, the only thing about this glaze that I kind of discovered is that it does tend to drip. I followed the instructions and put 3 layers of glaze here, but I think actually maybe 2 would be enough, because I've heard about glaze drips destroying your kiln shelves. I made these little kind of donut kiln cookies. It kind of has a little raised bit in the middle. And when I was firing some of these, just so that I'm sure that it doesn't drip onto my kiln shelf, I would put it on top of that, and it raised it above, a bit above. It allowed the drip to just hang there. And so, and there you can see like a knob of glaze there. It was similar to the Rose Quartz one, where it did also have those little drips there. I don't really mind it. I'm just going to use it for myself in the kitchen, and it just kind of almost acts like little feet for the bowl. So my advice is if you are going to be using, let me feature this guy in the front here. My advice is if you are going to be using brushable glazes, they do tend to run. From what I can see here, it's the Mako one seems to run a bit more than the others. If you are experimenting with these brushable glazes, then I do recommend putting it on a kiln cookie. Something like this is easily enough to be made. Also good practice for throwing as well. And you can use this several times in the kiln before I guess after a few firings, it might disintegrate because it's got too brittle. I am pleased, however, that these bowls do actually nest inside each other. So that one goes with that one. Seafoam goes next. And then the cirrus flow. And finally, the midnight rain. I could do better by making sure that they're probably flush with each other. So maybe that means making that one a bit wider so that one could go lower. I don't know. This is the first time I made nesting bowls, and I'm just thrilled that they actually do nest. And they would then fit inside my stack of this one. So there we have it. I now have 7 mixing bowls that nest into each other. I can donate these ones now to an op shop. I'm grateful for all the usage that I've had out of this, but now these are the ones that are going to be my go-to mixing bowls. I'll list all of the glazes that I used on these bowls in the description below. Hope you found that useful, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!